Okay. Welcome, everyone, to That's Football here on September 20th. I am Will Freeman. I'm joined by my co-host, Josh Price. How you doing today, Josh?
Hey man, always a good day to be a football fan and football insider, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. We're getting close to now where the weather's starting to change from summer to fall, actually, weather. Because here in St. Louis, we'll discuss here during high school stuff, is that there's going to be between tomorrow and Thursday a 20-degree difference.
Oh man, look, I woke up. I think that was yesterday morning, expecting it to be look cool. Start to usher in a little bit of that fall weather. Nope, right back with the 90 degree heat, man. So a little bit of a mini heat wave here before the fall really kicks in. But of course, that just means football is getting in the full swing.
Yeah, and thankfully it's not going to rain either, because even I remember during high school when those muddy games started, you could not get any footing or anything on your hands, especially when you're a lineman like myself.
Slip and slides, baby, slip and
Yep.
slides. But no, man. Getting right into peak football season. We've got, of course, NFL Week 2 recap that we'll start to get into here in a second. We've also got special guest Clifton Brown from BaltimoreRavens.com joining us here tonight. Of course, we'll get a chance to talk to him about the Ravens, Lamar Jackson's contract, or I guess lack of contract extension, and then, of course, get into some season-long outlook for them before finishing out some NFL, NCAA, XFL, USFL, everything you can think of, man. We got it covered. So, jumping into last football that we got to see last night, Monday Night Football doubleheader, which was still kind of weird to see in week 2, but football fans, man, we'll take it.
Though Disney seems to be very fond of it for some reason.
Oh, Disney. Look, Disney's just making sure the check clears, baby. They don't care how it looks, how it comes to us. They just want those numbers to look the same, man. So, first game of the night, Bills and Titans, and it was clear very, very early that this just was not going to be the Titans' night. Bills win 41-7 on Monday Night Football. Buffalo Bills, man. Quick note. Outscored their two opponents in these first 2 weeks, 72-17. I mean, Stephon Diggs, 12 catches, 148 yards, 3 touchdowns last night.
I think there was a stat I saw for the first half that Stephon Diggs had more receiving yards than the whole Titans receiving core in the first half.
Well, I'll even do you one better, Will. He had more catches, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns than the Titans for the entire game. So, just a dominant performance from him and Josh Allen last night. That Bills offense looking every bit of unstoppable right now.
Yeah.
I was not one riding that Bills hype train coming into the season, but I think they're starting to make a believer out of me. Man.
Yeah, but we also have to remember one thing, too. This is without their number 2 wide receiver who is out for the game. That's the one that held that was a good 1-2 punch for Allen in the receiving.
Yeah, Gabriel Davis was missing last night, and it didn't matter. They were all over the Titans, baby.
And that, all I'm saying, when Davis comes back, it's like they could still double, heck, I don't even think triple covering Stephon Diggs is going to help. Davis will be wide open there and a touchdown for him. So.
No, it seemed like there was always somebody open. And then, of course, on the Titans side of the ball, got so ugly that they took the starters out. You got a little bit of a sneak peek at Malik Willis, the third-round draft pick out of Liberty last night. Derrick Henry, not a very good game at all. I think 25 total rushing yards for him. And shout out to DraftKings for the folks out there. I did make that trip across to the Illinois side of the water, and taking the under on Derrick Henry at 99.5 rushing yards turned out to be pretty profitable.
Yeah, unfortunately, King Henry is pretty much King Nothing. That's a thing that's a note to a Metallica song. Because, dear Lord, Henry's not getting it done. Their quarterback's not getting it done.
Oh, no. No,
their defense is definitely not getting it done, and right now the AFC South, it's weird and sad when you see Jacksonville is leading the division.
Look, Jacksonville Jaguars are in first place, and again, we'll talk a little bit more AFC South here a little bit later in the show, but I think we all kind of expected the Titans to be a little bit worse than they were last year. Nobody expected them to be the number 1 seed in the AFC last year, let alone, being able to repeat that type of season. But this is a team that looks like they might be, really bad. And the biggest question that I have for them is, are we starting to see the end of the road for Derrick Henry? Because usually, running backs around this age, they start to, kind of fall off a little bit. We had our own, Ty Gurley, we got to see that happen in real time. Zeke Elliott, we starting to see it a little bit now down in Dallas. We'll get to him a little bit later in the show. Derrick Henry has been kind of, invincible up until this point, but now coming off of that foot injury last year, starting to look like those wheels are slowly but surely falling off of that train.
And let's also forget, their offensive line was no help to Henry.
Oh, no.
And you have to remember, Saffold, who was a guard for Titans, is now there for the Buffalo Bills.
True, very true. So,
and he's like, I'll put him as a solid type player.
Yeah,
you're letting go solid offensive linemen for your top player, like one of probably the best running backs in the NFL ever since Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, flat out.
And you're not getting the right amount of time to run block for Henry and also pass blocking for Tannehill.
Yeah, it was looking real rough from an offensive line standpoint. And you can, that offense just is not the same without A.J. Brown. And it's like they don't have that.
And he's having fun in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. He's having a lot of fun in Philadelphia. We'll get to him very next here in that game. But I think, not having a receiver that's going to be an extreme threat like A.J. Brown is, coupled with your running back not being in his prime anymore, sounds like a season full of offensive woes. So, not sure what the Titans are going to be able to do to get this one turned around.
I don't know. We'll just have to see because, like we said with the AFC South, they're not the only ones that are having problems.
No.
Colts.
Oh, my God.
By losing their number one player for that game, you could see that it's just that one player, and then if he's not playing, they're done.
Yeah, cooked, man. So, transitioning into that second Monday Night Football game, of course, we got I'll call it a semi-blowout for all intents and purposes.
And also, just one more thing, too, about the other game. I did not know Case Keenum was still in the NFL until last night.
Man, still collecting checks. I had no idea. Man. Look, shout out to Case Keenum. I feel like this is like team number 8 for him or something like that.
Him and Chase Daniel.
Always find the job, man. You can count on them too for sure. But yeah, man. So Eagles win 24-7 over the Vikings in their second Monday Night Football game. Kirk Cousins doing Kirk Cousins things in prime time. Little fun fact: he is now 2-10 on Monday Night Football in his career. 3 interceptions total last night. 2 of them to Darius Slay. Darius Slay was kind of the primary defender on Justin Jefferson and did a hell of a job last night defending Justin Jefferson. And when he was actually covering Jefferson, he had 2 interceptions. Jefferson only had 1 catch during that time. So, hell of an impact right there.
Yeah, and Thielen was pretty much non-existent for the Vikings. Here's the thing, too. Like, those 3 interceptions that Cousins threw, the Vikings were getting momentum.
Yes.
They were getting close to the end zone, and then I know that last interception, that was an end zone interception.
Well, I was going to say he threw 2 interceptions in the red zone, if not right in the end zone, and on like drives where they were really getting a chance to come back into the game. Even threw one after the Vikings got, I think, like a fumble or interception out of Jalen Hurts. So definitely not ideal for Kirk Cousins to be giving the ball away in those situations. Offense looked a little bit frustrated and stagnant last night. Talking about another running back who didn't get it going last night, Dalvin Cook, I believe only had like 17 rushing yards.
And he's still young, too, so I don't know what's wrong with it. It's either offensive line or just run routes or something. I don't know. It's like, we'll talk also about the NFC North, too, because honestly, I think the Lions are probably the number 2 team in that division right now.
You can make a case for it, man. And another little fun fact from last night, Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry combined for 42 rushing yards between the 2 of them in those 2 Monday Night Football games. So not a good night for a well-known running back.
There was a stat that I saw, because technically you could call Cousins mediocre. His overall record is 60-60-2.
Damn. Look at that. Pulling up them Jeff Fisher type numbers, man. Going 500 for your full career.
No. Jeff Fisher still needs
still needs some help, right?
He needs to come back here, lose a few more games, become the most losingest coach in NFL history. But he's in the USFL right now. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, Vikings came back down to earth a little bit after that Week 1 win. Now, the Eagles, got to say, I'm a little impressed with Jalen Hurts. I didn't know coming into the season how he was going to look from a passing standpoint. Of course, as that extra dimension as a runner, you saw last night 2 rushing touchdowns for him, 390 total yards in the air and on the ground. This Eagles offense looks kind of explosive now, man. You got go-to target in A.J. Brown. You got guys like Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins stepping it up. Probably the favorites in the NFC East right now.
Probably. Though the one thing too is for those that watch like close to the before the game, there was a story that A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts actually had a pretty good friendship that started back since their college visits.
Really?
So they were like playing around if they ever played with each other on the same team, and now it's happened.
Look, hey, and it looks like it's going well, man. Eagles starting the season off 2-0 with that win on Monday Night Football. They got a game against Washington next week. And the good old NFC East rivalry that we'll probably look at a little bit further.
At Philly or at the FedEx?
So it is at FedEx Field. Now, my betting friends out there, just saying, might want to watch that one next week. I'm not telling you which side to pick. I'm just letting you know. Might be a little bit sneaky. Them going on the road, a little bit of a Carson Wentz revenge game. As he gets to go up against his old team, the Philadelphia Eagles, next week.
Okay, hold on. I think our guest is coming in here. I need to find it here.
Cool. So, actually, it was a pretty well-timed transition right there. We were going to get into a little bit of discussion with Ravens and Dolphins from yesterday, but of course,
hello there, Mr. Brown. Give us just one moment. Let me put you up here on the screen.
We get Clifton in here, say some of that Ravens talk for him.
All right. Well, we need to get a little bit of help here from our producer here. All right. Okay. Yeah, our camera's not working, but you'll be able to hear both me and Josh from our little sound box here.
Okay, this is all right with you? Sounds all right?
Yeah, sounds great.
Yep.
Okay.
So, welcome to That's Football, Mr. Brown from BaltimoreRavens.com. Thank you for joining us this evening.
No problem.
All right. Well, Clifton, man, we want to, of course, in talking about the Ravens, I know a lot of the talk this offseason and to start this season has been around the contract status of Lamar Jackson. So, being around the team and kind of what you've heard, how do you think that contract situation has kind of impacted the team here to start the season so far, or has it had any impact at all from what you can tell?
Well, it certainly didn't look like it was bothering Lamar on Sunday.
Oh, no.
Even though the Ravens, didn't win the game and a bad loss for them and losing a 21-point lead in the fourth quarter, I thought Lamar was terrific. He's looked good all during training camp. He's in great shape. He's throwing the ball better than he ever has to me. His mind's in a really good place. So, he wanted to get a contract done before the season. The Ravens wanted to get one done. We're talking about a lot of money. One of the biggest contracts in the NFL, if not the biggest, when he signs it, and certainly the biggest in Ravens history. So it didn't get done, and he said once the season started, he was going to focus on football. That's what he's doing. We'll see what happens with the contract after the season's over, but right now I think that's kind of been put to bed with Lamar side and the Ravens side, and just focusing on trying to win football games now.
Gotcha. So, and speaking of, more of the on the field and them trying to win games, obviously injuries have been a big part of what's going on in and around this team, really the last 2 seasons. We saw, the most injured team in the league last year. Some pretty key injuries so far this year. Kyle Fuller, I believe Ronnie Stanley is a little bit banged up. We still have not seen J.K. Dobbins just yet. What updates have you gotten so far, at least from like a guy like J.K., who's kind of working his way back? How soon can they expect somebody like him to return?
I think it could happen any week. I mean, I think most people thought J.K. was going to play on Sunday. He practiced fully all last week. That was the first time he had practiced on a full basis since the knee injury. But the Ravens did not activate him Sunday. Ronnie Stanley has been limited in practice, but he's been on the field for a couple of weeks. We'll see if starting tomorrow he gets to be a full go. But I think it might be a little too soon for Ronnie, although we'll see if he were to practice all week. But Ronnie and JK should be in the lineup soon. They're still waiting on Tyus Bowser. He's on pup to start the season, so he still has at least 2 more games. And then their first round pick, David Ajabo, they think he'll play sometime this season, but maybe not till October or so. And then Marcus Peters just came back for the first time, last week. And Gus Edwards, their backup running back, is still not back. So as you said, they still are dealing with last year's injuries. They're not at full strength. I think the big picture is the Ravens, they feel in November and December, they hope that when all these guys are back, they'll be playing their best football by then. But until they're ready to come back, they're going to be very cautious with them, largely because of what happened last year.
Gotcha. Now, in the midst of those injuries, of course, that's required a lot of adjustment and some guys to step up on that roster, that next man up mentality. One guy that we've seen kind of shine so far is Rashad Bateman. Now, a lot was made this offseason about maybe not getting Lamar as much help as he's had or maybe that he needs. But what can you tell me as far as internally what they've seen from Rashad and how they feel about his performance so far through 2 weeks?
They're very high on Rashad and what he's done so far, and Devin Duvernay. So the Ravens, when they traded Marquise Brown to Arizona, you're talking about trading a 1,000-yard receiver last year. So that did leave a void where people were going to have to step up. And Bateman and Duvernay have done that. They would like to see some more wide receivers step forward like that as well. And then, of course, the rookie tight end, Isaiah Likely, he's been a find for them as a 4th-round pick who's really made a lot of noise in the preseason and, did some things on Sunday to make you feel he's going to be, a key part of the offense this year. So, Bateman and Duvernay are 2 really important players for the Ravens this year. They have an all-pro tight end in Mark Andrews who gets a lot of attention. Those guys do benefit from that, getting single coverage. And Bateman, he has really stepped up so far, as has Duvernay, showing that they can make big plays, not just catches, but big plays. They both have a lot of speed. So, I think that they feel good about what they've seen so far, but they need those guys to keep doing the job.
Gotcha. And so, kind of on the flip side of that now, though, any concerns right now defensively from the team? Obviously, 21-point lead, never ideal to blow those, and a hell of a performance from the Dolphins. You don't want to minimize that. But what, have you heard or what thoughts are going around the building right now, just, the response to that defensive performance from Sunday?
Yeah, you've got to be concerned. You give up 42 points, you give up a 21-point lead at home, and they gave up 2 easy touchdowns. I mean, we know Tyreek Hill, what he can do, great player, tremendous speed, but those 2 long passes were coverage mistakes on the Ravens' part. Yep. And they're going to have to eliminate them. And they've got, Kyle Hamilton, a rookie, seeing a lot of snaps at safety because of some of the injuries they've had. They've got 2 young corners, Jalen Armour-Davis, rookie corners, and Pepe Williams. They're probably going to be in the rotation. Marcus Peters, I don't think he's 100% yet. Marlon Humphrey got banged up Sunday. I don't think it's long-term, but he was not in the game down the stretch that last drive when the Dolphins took the lead. So they've got young guys in the secondary, particularly Hamilton, who are going to have to play better than they played Sunday if the Ravens are going to have a really good defense. They feel like that's going to happen, but they've got to do better than they did in week 2.
Yeah, for sure. So looking ahead, of course, they got the Patriots in New England this upcoming Sunday. A lot always to be made about going up against Bill Belichick and that team. Anything in particular in this week's game plan that you know of that they think that they can exploit or that they may try to exploit going up against the Patriots team in New England?
Yeah, well, New England hasn't looked, overwhelming in its first 2 games either. But, as you mentioned, the Bill Belichick team, one storyline to watch is Matthew Judon, the Patriots Pro Bowl pass rusher who used to be a Raven. This will be a huge game for him going against his former team. He's a heck of a player. He's going to be trying to put pressure on Lamar. So they're going to figure out how to get Judon blocked. And then certainly they don't want the Patriots, to get healthy against them offensively. And they're going to have to tighten up again in the secondary and not give up some easy plays to the Patriots offense that has struggled. So to me, there's no easy weeks in the NFL, particularly when you're on the road. And, the Ravens feel like they should be 2-0, but they're not. And they definitely don't want to drop to 1-2. So, it's an important game. They're all important. But I think it's a little more important coming off a loss like the Ravens had Sunday, that particularly defensively, they put out a better performance similar to what they had week 1 against the Jets.
Yeah. Now, we kind of talked about, season-long outlook and how they may feel a little bit better about their team as you get into, those colder months as opposed to now. From an expectations or even just, prediction standpoint, do you think this team can be a true contender in the AFC when it's all said and done?
No question. I mean, I've said all along, I still believe this, that, if Lamar Jackson stays healthy, I don't see 7 teams in the AFC better than the Ravens. I feel like if Lamar Jackson stays healthy, the Ravens are a playoff team. Once you get into playoffs, and obviously you have to play your best football, like the Rams did last year, to try and make a Super Bowl run. When you have a player like Lamar, an MVP franchise-type player, you always have a chance to win any game against anybody. So, yeah, I think the Ravens are a threat, are a true contender, but a lot of teams in the AFC can say that. And certainly, it's early. Right now, the Buffalo Bills bandwagon is super full. I mean, they've been dominant in 2 games. They are a good football team. I think right now, yeah, they're the September favorite to get to the Super Bowl. But a lot's going to happen, as we know, in the next 16 weeks, really, and 15 more games to play. But, yeah, I think to answer your question, yes, I think the Ravens will be in the playoffs. And then, when in January, we'll see how everybody is health-wise and how they're playing. And then I'll give you a better idea of whether I think, they'll really be the team to come out of the AFC or not.
Gotcha. Well, last question for me. I know, Ozzie Newsome has kind of been the head man in charge in that front office, for, I guess, the better part of 20 years now for that Ravens franchise. More of a consultant now, handing off those duties to Eric DeCosta. Is there, from a fan base standpoint, is there any less belief or trust in that front office now, knowing that Ozzie's kind of not at the helm as we talk about, Lamar Jackson staying there long term and just some of the ways that they're trying to build that team? Is there still that same trust from the Baltimore Ravens fans that they're going to be able to get something like that done?
I think there is. I mean, Ozzie's a legend, no question, and is irreplaceable. Ozzie's still around. I saw Ozzie Newsome today in the office. I mean, he's at most practices. He's around the building most of the time, especially during the season. And Eric DeCosta, the current general manager, he's been with the Ravens franchise since 1996, since the beginning. And Ozzie Newsome groomed Eric for this job. So they talk every day, or at least regularly. Ozzie still has, influence over Eric because, Eric and Ozzie are so close. And Eric, to me, is a very, very smart man who's been raised in the Ravens organization. So, it's still similar as far as, there really isn't that much of a transition between Ozzie and Eric. I think the Ravens have the personnel to be a Super Bowl contender. They've drafted well the last few years, even though Ozzie hasn't been the person running the draft. I think they definitely have enough talent to make a Super Bowl run, but you have to get it done on the field, and the margin of error between these teams, there's really not much difference. You could name at least 10 teams right now who you would say, I think they're going to win the Super Bowl, and you could make a strong case. That's the beauty of NFL. I mean, it's really going to be exciting to see how this all plays out.
Definitely so. Well, no, Clifton, we definitely appreciate you taking some time to join us and talk everything Ravens today. Let the people know out there where they can see you, where they can find you, and where they can see your work.
You can see my work and all the things we have going on with the Ravens at BaltimoreRavens.com. We've got, articles, we've got podcasts, we've got videos. So, the BaltimoreRavens.com for all things Ravens is a place to go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Clifton. We definitely appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight, man. We'll have to bring you back once the Ravens get back to that Super Bowl, baby.
Sounds good to me. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Clifton Brown of BaltimoreRavens.com joining us here on That's Football, of course, brought to you by the In the Zone Network. So kind of coming off of that segment with Clifton. Big takeaway, of course, Ravens still banged up with injuries, and it's definitely showing on the field, right?
Yeah, I should have asked him this, but out for the rushing yards, because with Dobbins coming back, they only had about 155 rushing, but only 119 that came from Jackson himself.
Yeah, so and that's the thing that you can kind of see with, especially in that backfield, man. You know, they've added guys like Kenyon Drake, Mike Davis, Justin Hill's a guy that they've still had from previous seasons, but they just can't really get that same rushing attack going with those guys as opposed to the tandem of having Lamar and J.K., back there together.
And you know where 3 of those yards came from? Andrews.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So you got the tight end getting rushing yards. You probably gotta adjust the game plan a little
like
bit.
you said, Bateman, Andrews, and don't forget the backup likely, because they got the passing game going.
Right.
It's a rushing. They can't just have Lamar just do the rush attack, or else all those defenses are going to do a contain in every play.
Yeah, so they're going to be daring Lamar to pass the ball at some point. Now, before we get off of Ravens, I do want to take some time, man, because of course that game was a little bit crazy in how it played out. So for the listeners out there, I was actually getting off of a plane on Sunday. Mm-hmm. When I got on the plane, roughly 12 or so, first thing I saw was Duvernay's kickoff return to take the Ravens up. And I'm like, okay, well, good start for the Ravens.
Yep.
I immediately get off of the plane a couple hours later to see that they're up 35-14. Okay? Didn't think nothing of it. Lamar Jackson's having himself a hell of a game. The Ravens are running away with it. Next thing I know, man, I get through the airport, get my bags, get home, get to, kind of going through the games again, and then the Dolphins are driving, and they're tying the game. And I'm looking up, okay, like, what happened? Well, Tua Tagovailoa is what happened to that game. 469 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, overcame 2 early interceptions to bring the Dolphins back from 21 points for a 42-38 win. Probably the coming out party that Tua needed to get the haters off of him, right?
Yeah. And just for a little bit of fun here, raise your hand if you had Tua on your fantasy bench.
Ooh. So I actually know a couple folks that fall on your side of the wagon there, man, with having Tua, but having them on the bench.
In my NFL fantasy league, he would have got me 50 points.
Hey, look, I don't know what was in the water or what happened, but Tua kind of went back to looking like Alabama Tua in that second half.
And I only would, because here in the St. Louis market, I got that bore of the Steelers-Browns game.
Oh, my gosh.
And the Steelers-Brown game, and then once that was over, then they switched to, here's a better game for you to watch. I don't know why we didn't get the Ravens and Dolphins game. Maybe because they thought it was closer. Because remember, the Chiefs game wasn't on because that was the Amazon game.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that one just a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then Fox, I can't remember what it was because usually we get the Bears or the Packers.
Well, yeah, they just so happened to be playing each other Sunday night, so everybody had to sit through that bore fest. That is that, which we'll get to that in a second. But I'll have a little bit of a nit to pick about how people talk about that rivalry. But big breakout game from Tua. Both Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, of course, they went off as well. Both with 11 catches, over 160 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
He did get injured, if I remember, a little bit later on, but he did come back.
Yeah, got a little dinged up, but came back in the game, so we'll keep an eye out on that one. They got a very, very big divisional game next week coming up against the Buffalo Bills, which probably going to be the game of the week, looking at how those two offenses looked this past Sunday. Yeah. Sunday and Monday. But only other takeaway from me on that game, man, just pay Lamar. Just pay him. Pay him.
Either
please.
They're going to pay him long term, or they have, because I hate it, but it's what it's there for, the franchise tag. At least we'll do it for 1 year, and then I could say that he's probably, even with this performance alone, got a lot of jersey sales coming his way.
Oh yeah. He gonna run up the jersey sales, man, for sure. Sure. So you mentioned Chiefs Thursday night football. Chiefs beat the Chargers 27-24. Actually, turned out to be a pretty good game for most of it. Big play, of course. Chiefs get the 99-yard interception return as the Chargers are driving, take the 24-17
And
lead.
he was, if I remember correctly, he was either a 4th or 5th round pick because he's a rookie.
Yeah, he's a rookie and very late round pick, but made a hell of a play. For those of y'all who were watching the game live on Thursday, Gerald Everett, tight end for the Chargers, tried to come out of the game. They were running no huddle, and so had to stay in and ran a pretty lazy route, which led to that interception. And then, of course, some big hits later to Justin Herbert led to him kind of being dinged up. Got injured with an ab and rib injury. They say he's going to be day-to-day. He actually finished the game somehow, which I don't even know how the Chargers team doctor still has a job. He punctured my man Tyrod Taylor's lung a couple years ago, and then he told Justin Herbert to stay in the game. What are you doing?
I think he had to pay Taylor, like, either him or the organization $5 million, something.
Well, yeah, Taylor's suing for $5 million, so I imagine that's coming out of somebody's pocket.
And then, just to puncture someone's lung and still have a job, like, in the same organization, let me be clear. Like, it would have been fine if he went to a different one. I understand that, but still. That's it. Speaking of, because remember, this is the first prime time regular season game for Amazon, because unfortunately, this is what's going to be happening, folks, here with the streaming, because we're still going to have that antenna stuff but who knows for how long, because everything's going to go, with data and all that stuff. Of course, they still need to take care of the rural areas for that to work.
Right.
And then for Amazon, they had some deals with DirecTV to do games at bars and restaurants. Though, speaking of DirecTV, 2 straight weeks, Sunday Ticket went down.
Well, I've got a little bit of a theory on the Sunday Ticket.
Yeah.
I think they already kind of see the writing on the wall. They just like, look, we know y'all getting us up out of here next year. We just gonna let y'all have what y'all have, man. If it works, it works. If it don't, it don't. And we just gonna keep pushing.
My odds are it's Apple. But then speaking of that, because there were some interesting stats. Apparently, 12.5 million supposedly watched the game. That's high for a streaming service for sports.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like Amazon.
According to Amazon, it was their largest sign-up day. Probably because people didn't realize that Amazon had the Thursday night game.
Probably not. Yeah, a lot of guys like us waking up on Thursday like, dang, I don't have a Prime membership. Let me go ahead and try to get that going.
And as a Prime member myself, for those two, because this is going to happen every Thursday, well, except for the last 2 weeks, maybe I'm trying to remember. I think so. Did the last 2 weeks have Thursday night? I know last week.
Well, I know the very last week of the season usually doesn't have a Thursday night game, but I'm pretty sure the second to last week will.
Yeah,
we'll check that schedule.
Right now, if you want to sign up for Prime, with tax is about $15.52 per month. Of course, you get that with the shipping, the Amazon Music, Amazon this, that, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, and then interesting, too, is that there's a guy named Sam Schwartzstein who actually helped make the XFL 2020 rulebook that's in charge of the stats called Prime Video Sports Analytics and Insights. And you can follow that at PV Sports Stats. And, they do stats for not just the Prime games, but for everything. And speaking of the Dolphins Rankings that we talked about with Clifton Brown, they actually had stats for improbable comebacks. And lowest percentage of winning during the time before they won, Jets was 0.3%.
Wow.
Dolphins, 1.3%. And then for rounding up the last part for third, the Arizona Cardinals, 2%.
Yeah, crazy, man. We had, three big comebacks like that all on the same day, which we'll get to a real interesting note about that Jets comeback here in just a second also. But, of course, Chiefs got the win, continue to kind of power on. They'll get the Colts next week. Chargers taking on the Jaguars, hoping that Justin Herbert can kind of fight off that injury bug for a little bit longer. But speaking of injuries, another big injury from Sunday. We had 49ers quarterback Trey Lance go down with a broken ankle. Pretty ugly play for him. Hate to see that for him, too. He, of course, week 1 has to go play up in the monsoon up in Chicago, and then just when you think he's going to get, clear weather to play in, he goes out and gets his ankle, rolled up on in game. And so he's now out for the season. Their decision to keep Jimmy G looking better and better by the day now.
Oh, yeah. I never seen so many Niners fans flip so goddamn hard.
Oh man, flip real fast. And so you even had, Bleacher Report put out the notification here not too long after that game on Sunday saying that there are some 49ers players that believe they have a better chance now that Jimmy G is at quarterback as opposed to Trey Lance. And so, again, you hate to see anybody lose their job due to injury, but with that said, I do think in terms of just this particular season, you can make an argument that with as wide open as the NFC is, that, Jimmy G plays well, the 49ers could be one of those contenders, down the stretch. We've seen him get them to a Super Bowl before. They were, within a shouting distance of the Super Bowl last year going against the Rams in the NFC Championship. So, I guess as we watch the season play out, do you think them having Jimmy G raises that ceiling a little bit for him?
Well, experience, yes. It just, mostly we have to remember that Jimmy G does have a good arm, but starting last year, he was throwing those ducks.
Oh, a lot of them. And you even saw it that last play against the Rams. He's, throwing the spinning, whatever he did, and throwing the interception to seal that game. So,
and one thing, too, the Niners did have quarterbacks work out for them in their facility. Some names that even I know about, especially in the alternative sports with XFL and USFL, they worked out. Ben Kurt, that was the guy that I mentioned on our last show that XFL's been talking to him. Former Alabama quarterback A.J. McCarron.
A.J. McCarron still getting looks. Shout out to him.
And also another person that got good looks, former Orlando Apollo's AF quarterback Garrett Gilbert.
Okay, nice.
And then also Kevin Hogan, former Patriots quarterback.
There we go, man. Look at that. The usual suspects, man.
Yep.
So, of course, we'll see how that situation plays out for the 49ers now. Back to one of those comebacks that we talked about. New York Jets, man, coming back from 30-17 down. 2 touchdowns there in the last minute and a half to beat the Browns 31-30. Joe Flacco with a crazy performance, 4 touchdowns, breakout game for rookie wide receiver Garrett Wilson. Also goes over 100 yards and 2 TDs. Nick Chubb scored 3 touchdowns in the loss for the Browns. You could probably make the argument that his last touchdown that he scored might have been the one that cost him the game.
Yeah, he said that he should have just laid down instead of scored there. Though, I'll just say this, I'm not going to get too much to it. It couldn't happen to a better fan base.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look, we,
especially some antics if you saw social media over the weekend.
Oh, yeah. For those of y'all who didn't see it, I think I might be able to find the tweet and send that out for y'all. But, yeah, let's just say there's not a lot of people upset about the Browns taking that type of L, given, their off-season shenanigans, man. So,
especially there are some customization stuff that I've seen on social media. Yeah, you guys deserve, even NFL memes even put out that they should go to a very specific place. I'll just say that.
Yeah, definitely. So, Browns will definitely try to rebound from that loss, a tough one on Sunday. Now, also in New York, we got the Giants beating the Panthers 19-16.
Probably the only 2-0 team I'm surprised that's there right now.
Well, very surprising for the Giants. 2-0 for the first time since 2016, which was also, ironically enough, the last time they made the playoffs. So very, very good start for them. Brian Daboll looking, every bit as worth it as a coaching hire that we've seen so far with some of these new head coaches. And then also, fun fact, Giants and Jets win on the same day. The Mets and Yankees, for the baseball folks out there, also win on Sunday. All 4 teams winning for the first time, or winning together on the same day for the first time since 2009. So, you, New York fans, man, keep y'all head up.
And thank you, Mets, for making the St. Louis Cardinals magic number down by 1.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, so, that's an interesting stat, too, especially for one specific area, though. I don't know. There's definitely more Yankees than Mets fans, definitely in New York.
Oh yeah. I think it'll be fun from a baseball standpoint to see both of those teams in the playoffs.
And then for the Giants and Jets, even though they're in the same area, those fan bases are completely different.
Yeah, it's night and day difference in terms of those fan bases. But actually kind of happy for the Giants, man. They've been down for a while. Good to see a guy like Saquon Barkley at least through a couple games, staying healthy and trying to play well.
He did good at week 1, but he's still doing good after that injury that he had.
Oh, yeah.
And strangely, though, Joe Flacco, I saw a stat, he actually has the 3rd most passing yards in the league right now.
Yeah, he's like 3rd in the league in passing right now, I think.
Tua's number 1.
Yeah, and then I think like the Lions are like 3rd in points through 2 games.
Yeah, though if I remember the power rankings, the Jets were actually second last. Falcons belong down there in last place where they belong. Honestly,
that's rough for them.
That's the worst team, and who knows? They'll later on in a few weeks. I'll be starting doing a Tank Bowl segment. We're not there yet, but we're getting there.
Now I will, once we wrap up the NFL here in a few minutes, I will give you an early nominee for me for the Tank Bowl.
Okay.
I'll put it out there. I'll step out on a limb, and put it out there in a second. But Bucks and Saints next up on the docket for us. 20-10 win for the Bucks down in New Orleans. A little bit of fireworks in that game. You know, Marshawn Lattimore got in the face of Tom Brady, immediately followed by a little bit of fisticuffs, as they call it. Mm-hmm. Leonard Fournette, Mike Evans getting to the shoving match with him, as well as, I believe, Marcus May. Mike Evans, the only player suspended from that altercation.
Yeah.
Suspended for 1 game. You know, of course, prior history with him and Marshawn Lattimore, so not their first time tangling up on the field.
It was looking like it wasn't as bad as that Finnegan Calvin Johnson fight those years back.
Oh, yeah, that was a doozy.
That getting close, and of course the Buccaneers receiving problems are not doing us. They actually signed Cole Beasley to their practice squad.
Oh man, so it's getting real desperate there for the Bucks. So they won't have Mike Evans this week.
Speaking of that, there's also some other players that haven't been signed. Ndamukong Suh is still a free agent.
Yeah, I would.
Janoris Jenkins is still a free agent.
Really? That's nuts, man. I would think that guys like that, you know, after you get to a certain stature in the league, you would think that you could always have a NFL roster
if he
spot.
did retire, I think he has a good chance of getting the Hall of Fame, not first ballot, but he probably will get in.
Hey, you know, it's crazy to think about, you know, a guy like Ndamukong Suh. I remember when he was going into the draft and just how unstoppable he was coming out of Nebraska.
Going either with Sam Bradford or Ndamukong Suh. I remember that.
You know,
Bradford was fine, but he just had an injury problem. That was the only problem. He had the talent just that day. He got hurt. I don't know. He's that type when you see a quarterback that has those chicken leg type things. Similar problem that Darren McFadden had.
Oh, yeah.
Because they made a point during when he was in Arkansas about how small his legs are from his calves to his feet. Even I'm like, okay, you need running backs need to do some leg day there. So
squats and calf raises, baby.
That's actually my specialty. And yeah.
So, real quick on the Saints, man. No Alvin Kamara for them this past Sunday. Jameis Winston's out there playing with 4 back fractures.
Yes, 4 back fractures and had a specific pad on the back. When I saw that, I was like, that's not smart at all. And then let's not all forget, too, there was some sideline kind of eyebrow raised because now people were questioning why Bruce Arians was on the Buccaneers sideline in that game, too.
You know, crazy things happen with the Bucks. I'm not sure what's going
on.
They
won, but
yeah, it's a lot of question marks going around there. Now for the Saints, man, I actually thought the Saints had an outside chance at being one of those 6 or 7 seed playoff teams. I don't know with the way these injuries are starting to look for them. It might be a pretty long road back to the playoffs for them, man.
Yeah, I said, here's the thing. That Taysom Hill contract that they did has come to bite him in the butt.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're paying this guy all this money, and you're not even having him as a quarterback.
No, he's like gadget running back listed as a tight end in fantasy. Like, it's kind of nuts that they chose to pay him that amount of money knowing that he's not going to be the quarterback of the future, man.
Yeah, there's going to be... That'll probably be one of the, maybe not, it'll be a discussion. It's probably top 10 or top 5 worst contracts in NFL history, probably.
I mean, I definitely think it'll be top 5 when it's all said and done. If you pay a guy quarterback money and you can't start him at quarterback, that's
don't
pretty
forget
bad.
Alvin Kamara's off-the-field issues could come into play later on. We just don't know when. That's also going to be... It's just,
so I want to say that he goes back to court for that situation next month, so we'll see kind of how that continues to play out, whether he gets some type of suspension this year or if they wait until that gets settled going into next season. Mm-hmm. So, moving on to another comeback game. Cardinals come back from 20 points down against the Raiders, end up with a 29-23 win in OT in Las Vegas. Cardinals, man. It's kind of weird. I watched a little bit of the end of this game. I wasn't very high on the Cardinals at all coming into this season. Somewhat higher on the Raiders, but of course they play in a tough division. I don't really like what I'm seeing from either team so far through 2 games.
And Kyler Murray isn't being that impressive either, even after signing that contract too. So that might come to bite the Arizona Cardinals' butt too.
No, and he had that contract clause, the film thing or whatever. It looks like him and the coaching staff need to get on the same page with some of that film study, because it's a lot of that he's missing out on.
Might be on the hot seat quicker than people thought. I thought in the NFC West Pete Carroll might, but that doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon.
No, Cliff Kingsbury got that contract extension, and he looks like he might be the first coach fired if things go wrong, continue to go wrong this season.
Oh, is this going to be like... Do NFL have buyouts like they do in college coaches, or no?
Not to my knowledge. If they do, it definitely doesn't work in the same way. But they'll probably give him some type of buyout of the remaining money that he has left, or whatever was guaranteed. But I think the Cardinals are a team where we might look up in, let's say, week 5, week 6, and might be adding them to the tank bowl a lot sooner than what we realize.
Because people that don't know, there's going to be a segment probably starting week 9 is probably my guess. There's going to be a tank bowl basically of like the 2 worst teams just taking it to get like the best draft pick, basically.
We're going to see it.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to be glorious to break down some of the... It's actually more fun to break down the worst when 2 bad teams face each other than 2 good teams.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot more comedy involved in the bad teams playing against each other, man. So... you got the Raiders off to an 0-2 start. Not going to get any easier for them now. They got the Titans next week, which, of course, those are going to be 2 0-2 teams now facing each other. But then they follow that up immediately with the Broncos, I believe, at home, and then Chiefs on Monday Night Football for week 5. So definitely not getting any easier coming off of an 0-2 start. Do you think the Raiders can find their way into the playoffs after this in that tough AFC, man?
I don't know, but let's think about it as a whole topic perspective here, because remember, the Raiders were good even with that whole bad John Gruden situation.
Right.
Now you bring Josh McDaniels. He has baggage too, if you remember the whole Indianapolis deal.
Yeah, backing out of the job,
and
man.
If they are unable to do any type of progress, or at least, let's say, get over 500 at least, at best, that's not going to look good on the organization.
No.
What at all, especially with the talent they have.
Right.
So, because Davis is going to have to figure out, hopefully this isn't, I doubt it's going to be a one-and-done coaching situation, because maybe the GM might get fired. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I was going to say Mike Mayock might have to be the guy on the way out.
I'm surprised he's still around, because if you look at both when he was the GM and Gruden was the coach, most of their first-round picks they don't even have anymore.
Well, I was going to say picks in general, man. They had a lot of rough drafts, no pun intended, in terms of just the picks that they made compared to some of the guys who were available.
They also just traded one of the linemen they drafted in the first round a few years back this season, too.
Yeah, and he was a guy that had no business being taken in the first round, at least from what all the draft analysis was. So,
And you expected with Brian Mayock being he was, of course, was he Fox or NFL Network?
He was NFL Network's draft analyst. So you would have thought that he'd be able to come in and kind of, get the ship righted for them, but not looking that way.
I wouldn't give the reins to Mel Kiper here, because if like we discussed that whole Bradford Sue draft.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, Kiper had Jimmy Clausen above Sam Bradford in the rankings for quarterback.
Yeah, that one doesn't look too good.
Yeah, Notre Dame quarterbacks have not been doing well ever since. Was it? No, Troy Aikman wasn't from Notre Dame, or I think it's some other Dallas Cowboys quarterback that came from Notre Dame. I'll try to remember that later, because it wasn't until Saquon Barkley they finally broke that running back from Penn State first-round curse.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, Now, I like to see some of those trends break, but unfortunately, there's some trends that just stay there and there for
forever.
Good reason.
Forever, man. Good and bad, right? And so, speaking of good and bad, and one of the Raiders' division rivals here, we got Broncos against the Texans on Sunday. A game that I thought was probably going to be a blowout. Turns out I was wrong. It was a game that the Texans actually had the lead pretty late, 9-6, until Broncos were able to escape with it 16-9. But if you're a Broncos fan, you can't be real happy with what you've seen from Russell Wilson so far after what you gave up for him.
Yeah, neither from the head coaching too.
Oh my gosh, man! So
there was even a meme that shows every time there was a short to get a first down, they were playing a clip from Billy Idol going shotgun because every time it was short yards, they were always in shotgun.
Oh my gosh, man! I think I heard a stat of they have 6 goal-to-go plays so far this season. 0 for 6 on all of them in terms of conversions. And
Judy didn't do much this week either. That was because he had a good performance the week before.
Well, he actually left that game.
That's right.
With the shoulder or rib injury, I believe, something along that line. Patrick Surtain.
Injuries are happening this week.
Crazy, yeah. It's it's the NFL,
the lower
man.
ones you have to worry about, though. The only ones that are upper body that you have to be worried about: separated shoulder, and then Stafford still has
dealing with that elbow. Yeah, the pitcher's injury or whatever he had, man. So you had Judy leave that game. You also had Patrick Surtain leave that game for the Broncos as well. So 2 injuries they'll definitely want to keep their eye out on. Hackett as a head coach, I'm not seeing it so far through 2 games. He had a 64-yard kick that he chose to take on Monday Night Football on 4th and 5, but then had a 4th down for a 59-yard field goal and chose to punt it. Where's the logic, my man?
And don't forget about that, like I said last time, Peyton Manning on the Manning-cast asking them to call a timeout.
Yes, please.
Timeout, and even Shannon Sharp was going with his eyes wide open on that. It's if you guys are able to see the Manning-cast, I do recommend going to see that sometimes as well. That's another thing too. ESPN needs to stop doing some false advertisement because on the Sunday night game, we might go into that next. They say that both Monday night games were both to be available on ESPN Plus. Wrong.
Yeah. From what I could tell, at least in my ESPN Plus, anybody out there listening that saw it any differently, let me know. But my ESPN Plus account, I was only able to access Bills and Titans. It switched over in the ESPN app after I think probably after that Bills game got out of hand to the 34-7 mark. They allowed you to start watching both in the app. But definitely not one of those things where you could watch the start of that Vikings-Eagles game on ESPN Plus.
They should have done that, except they had an ESPN for the main commentary, then ESPN2 for the Manning-cast.
Yeah. Now, the Manning-cast, one of my favorite little alternate broadcasts that ESPN does, man. Because, of course, Peyton and Eli, they some jokesters. They also get real insight from that quarterback perspective.
I still do recommend Troy and Joe Buck.
Oh, yeah.
They're still good. I'm still Tirico and Collinsworth. They're fine. I just prefer Tirico a lot better than Collinsworth. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and if you're gonna have Collinsworth out there, I would much rather have him with Al Michaels than Mike Tirico. But of course,
you don't actually like his son better. That's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I heard his son a little bit. Of course, when he got started to play out, they sound literally like twins. So it's crazy in that regard. But yeah, some of these commentator, duos, I'm a little little lukewarm on. I definitely love Troy Aikman and Joe Buck though. They a classic.
Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, they're only done 2 games technically, but I thought they did fine.
They did fine. Kirk Herbstreit has never really been my type of guy in terms of his actual in-game stuff. When I've seen him on game day, kind of breaking down stuff like that, cool. But actual in-game announcing, I'm not really a fan like that.
Yeah, and I will say I do like the pregame crew though.
Yeah, the pregame crew. You had Richard Sherman out there, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Andrew Whitworth. I'm blanking on the woman's name. Of course, forgive me for that one. But Amazon Prime, I see that trying to get their crew together, man. They got the former players out there, kind of giving it a little bit of a TNT feel, like how they do.
I'm not really a big fan of the dude perfect guys, to be quite honest.
Nah, but you got to take the good with the bad. Right?
Yeah.
So we'll move on to Jags beating the Colts 24-0. I believe this is now the Colts' 5th straight loss against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, just losing one player. Let me find him here, because he was actually on my bench for one fantasy game for it. Because this is the example of having, if you lose this one player, then pretty much your whole offense is kaput.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it was that bad.
Now, as you look to find that, I think this is gonna be my surprise Tank Bowl team. I don't think the Colts are good.
They're not.
I don't think the Colts are good, bro.
Yeah.
They were down 20-3 against the Texans. They lose on Sunday 24-0 against the Jaguars. They're supposed to be
Pittman.
Pittman missed the game, so of course I don't want to hold this against him too much. But at the same time, Matt Ryan not looking like the quarterback you brought him in to be.
Nope.
It's a team that's supposed to be good defense, run the ball. They can't stop the Texans and the Jaguars. How are they supposed to contend in the AFC?
They can't.
Yeah, if you can't stop the Texans and the Jaguars, how are you going to beat the Bills, the Chiefs, which they have the Chiefs next week, and that 6.5 point spread for the Chiefs is looking real tasty to me. I was gonna say that looked real generous to me. So before those lines change, I might have to make that move across the water.
I don't know. If he does come back, then I can kind of see it.
Yeah, but even with that, like Pittman was in the game last week against the Texans, had a hell of a game, and they barely escaped with the tie. So I just don't see it right now for the Colts. For whatever reason, they struggled getting Jonathan Taylor the ball, at least the amount of touches that he's used to getting. They just look kind of broken as a team, man, through 2 games. I don't want to overreact, but at the same time, for a team that's supposed to go from pretty good in the AFC to really good, with the quarterback change to Matt Ryan from Carson Wentz, I'm not seeing it. And at this point, you probably can put Frank Reich on the hot seat if they're going to continue this.
Yeah.
So, next game that we'll hit on really quickly, defending champs, Rams, to beat the Falcons barely, 31-27. They were up big in that game and almost let it slip away late up until Jalen Ramsey got the interception to save the game there at the end. Falcons, of course, you mentioned they're probably going to be pretty firmly into that Tank Bowl.
They're going to probably be in a few Tank Bowls, because there's a chance a Tank Bowl probably be between them and the Saints.
Yeah, depending on what that season and the matchup looks like for the two of them. So the Falcons have kind of struggled getting Kyle Pitts the ball early on in the season. We'll see if that continues for them as they try to get some things right after starting 0-2 with a couple late losses. So other games to hit on really, really quick here before we move over to some USFL news. Lions with a 36-27 win over Washington. Amon-Ra St. Brown with a huge game, 68 rushing yards, 9 catches, 116 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. On the Washington side, Carson Wentz over 300 passing yards, again, 3 touchdowns. So, Lions kind of building off of the momentum that we thought they'd have a little bit coming out of Hard Knocks. And Carson Wentz looking pretty decent so far for the Commanders. So, shout out to those two. Patriots get a win, 17-14 over the Steelers. 2 teams that just did not look very good on Sunday.
The Cleveland Steelers, like I said, that was a bore.
Yeah. So,
and us people here in St. Louis got that game. That was not good.
Terrible.
And you can tell Pittsburgh, they won Kenny in so bad because they couldn't. I thought Trubisky didn't play bad. It just.
Well, yeah, he didn't. He hasn't played bad, but he also hasn't helped them significantly either. So I could definitely understand why they would look to go to Kenny Pickett sooner rather than later. If I'm Mike Tomlin, I probably would make that move. Maybe not this week against Cleveland on a short week. Maybe you do it the following week with the 10 days between games coming off a Thursday night. But I think they might just need to go ahead and make that move soon before that team gets too down on
themselves. Here's also we have to remember about Mike Tomlin's tenure in Pittsburgh. He has not had a losing season.
No, he isn't.
Pittsburgh has been very consistent, but if playing what if here,
Right.
if they somehow have a losing, do you think he's gone or not? I don't think he'll be gone because he's brought so much for that franchise that like it would be stupid just after that.
Oh no! After one losing season, they'd be fools to let Mike Tomlin go. And to be honest, there's a world where they make that switch to Kenny Pickett and they avoid that losing season. I just don't see Mitchell Trubisky being the guy to hold it down all season.
J.J. Watt's brother back as soon as they can.
Yeah, because the sooner they get him back, the sooner that defense can keep operating at a high level.
And
So
I guess before we go to USFL, let's just go name probably the few games that we're probably going to watch here for week 3.
oh yeah, so we'll kind of break them down a little bit more in depth towards the back end of the show,
All right.
but
Before we go to the second hour here, let's also mention one of our sponsors here, Cafe Piazza.
the great folks at Cafe Piazza.
Yeah, very good. Nice Italian-style pizza. It kind of has that cafe atmosphere, the one part, but then you have that fun family fun center with Penn Arcade connected right next to it. Have all sorts of pinball machines, basketball. They have probably one of your favorites, the classic NBA Jam.
NBA Jam, baby.
Yeah, they got like I said, all sorts of pinball, Godzilla, Deadpool.
Man, you got the WWE action figures lying in the top of the arcade, man.
And they got,
Great atmosphere.
They got some MMA and memorabilia too. I like the pizzas, but I personally like the fried calamari.
See, I didn't get the fried calamari when we got to go down last time. The pizza, amazing though. Just
I have
chef's
yet to
kiss,
try
man.
their breakfast one yet, but they also have a good selection of beers. I like beer, but I also like ciders, and they have a good selection of ciders as well. And they also have made some very good custom drinks, especially those Battlehawk cacao drinks that we had the last
Oh,
time.
yeah, look, man. So for those here locally in St. Louis, if you've not gotten a chance to check out Cafe Piazza yet, please make sure you go down there and tell them In the Zone Network sent you, 1900 Arsenal Street here in St. Louis.
Right by the Anheuser-Busch Brewery, just right next to it. You can just see it right there.
Yeah, right on the other side of 55 there, man. So shout out to the great folks at Cafe Piazza's, one of our leading sponsors here at In the Zone Network.
Yes. Now getting to the USFL here, signings here, because right now they had their first season. It was a success.
Yep.
Birmingham Sounds were the champions, and right now it's basically their free agent period. I'm just to say this: a spring league has not done that ever since United Football League in the early 2010s, which is still rare. And before that, the more successful one, of course, the old USFL.
Right.
The original.
Original, right.
So they did some signings here. I'll go down to here. Start with the New Jersey Generals. Centers Sean McMorr from Vanderbilt. Had some experience with Tennessee. Let's see. Then you got Arthur Jackson, wide receiver from Eastern Michigan. There's Eastern Michigan actually gets named here pretty quick. They actually got a few players signed this week. Most has indoor football experience with the IFL with the Louisville Extreme.
Okay.
Defensive end Justin Cates from the, of course, the HBCU North Carolina A&T, and he mostly has CFL experience. Just had a contract with the Edmonton Elks.
Right.
Then tight end Bryson Cannon, Eastern Michigan again. Graduate, actually was part of the last year's draft class, so he's still pretty young.
Eastern Michigan producing them, man.
Yeah. Wide receiver Darryl Stewart, Michigan State.
Okay.
Practice squad with the Packers and the Panthers.
So some NFL experience sneaking in there.
Yep. Linebacker Brian White from Cincinnati was actually with the practice squad for the Kansas City Chiefs.
There we go.
Then you got Philadelphia Stars with only one. He was actually part of this year's draft class of 2022. So this, like I said, this actually gives people a chance that were unable to sign a practice squad, because draft classes are a lot bigger than people think. And this year particularly was actually a huge one.
Right.
Huge.
And for those kind of listening at home that might not know this too, the pandemic kind of put a little bit of hold on a lot of guys going in and out of the draft, because you got a lot of guys who got that extra year of eligibility in college,
yes.
And being able to stick around because they didn't get either a junior or a senior season. So you got a lot of those guys looking for homes that aren't finding them in the NFL that will now be able to get USFL contracts and maybe even XFL contracts.
Yeah, next we have the runners-up, the Philadelphia Stars. Samuel Akim from the University of Montana.
Okay, Montana in the building.
Part of the, like I said, draft class of 2002. Then the champions, the defending champions, the Birmingham Stallions. Center Cole Cabrera from Arizona State. We're going to be mentioning that school here in a little while.
Yep.
Was an undrafted free agent with the Rams and was part of the practice squad for the Texans and Vikings and Saints. So there's some experience there. Then you got linebacker Elijah Sullivan from Kansas State, 2021 draft class, and was part of the Niners, Chiefs, and Jags practice squad. Now we're going with the Pittsburgh Maulers. I'll explain this a bit, but I kind of feel sorry for the players on this team. I'll explain that in a little bit. They signed long snapper Luke Barnes from Alabama State. Actually had some experience with the Carolina Panthers. Then you have... Actually, no, sorry. He was a 2021 draft person. And spring leagues are perfect for long snapper because those are like all special team positions. Long snapper, kicker, and punter. Those are usually just one person, and they don't usually have them on the practice squad usually.
Right.
So, though, if you remember, unfortunately for the Colts, they did cut the geek kicker last week.
Oh, yeah, Rodrigo Blankenship, man. Shout out to Rodrigo, my man, kicking in the goggles. He had to go ahead and get about the paint.
Then you have fullback, though. He has a running back experience. Mason Stokes from Wisconsin, those type of running backs. Yeah. He was part of the Carolina Panthers, but he had an injury, so he's back on there with the Pittsburgh Maulers, and I understand why he's going to the Pittsburgh Maulers because of Kirby Wilson's style. Okay. Then you got defensive back Caleb Ham from Fordham, CFL guy, played for the Toronto Argos and Edmonton Elks. Safety Eric Bell, Wisconsin, was part of the Saints organization for a time. Then you got the Houston Gamblers, and like we said, Larry Kevin, he's got, besides signing players, he also has signed almost a whole new coaching staff. Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
Linebacker,
him on that one, man.
Yeah, linebacker Brandon Payer, Colorado State Pablo, undrafted of this year's draft class. Then we actually got a local guy here.
Look at that.
And we'll mention this school too, Lindenwood University, St. Charles' first year being D1. Clint Gigg, he actually led in receptions for the Lions last year, part of the 22 draft class. So this is actually perfect for these guys here.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Lindenwood.
To get experience too. Then you got defensive end Reggie Walker, Kansas State, was part of the Arizona Cardinals. Wide receiver Deontay Alexander, Franklin College. Played for the Detroit, Seahawks, Lions, and also has some spring league experience.
Okay.
Then you got cornerback Nazir Streeter, Indiana University in Pennsylvania.
How many, quick aside, man, how many Indiana universities are there? I feel like it's like 20,000.
Believe it or not, like I said with Lindenwood, when I saw that, I was like, are they talking about Lindenwood and St. Charles, or are they talking about Lindenwood, Belleville with the trippy red and gray football field that hurts my eyes when I saw that picture?
Right.
Then Nazir actually part of 2022, like I said. Then you got Jeff Fisher's Michigan Panthers. They signed a wide receiver, Isaiah McCoy from Kent State. Was undrafted for this year, but actually was on the Colts and was with the Steelers too recently. Okay. Next, there was a guy that just got signed by the Michigan Panthers. Defensive tackle Garrett Marino from UAB. And most recently played for the CFL for the Saskatchewan Roughriders and actually was a starter. But, okay. This guy here, Garrett Marino, only is in this position because he got suspended recently for a late hit for 4 games and against the Ottawa Redbacks quarterback Jeremiah Mussolini for not just the hit, but also making comments about Mussolini's heritage.
Yeah, not ideal.
He came back then 4 weeks later, then he got released September 6th. And this guy actually has a problem past, too, because he actually went to 3 different universities in college and then mostly been a CFL guy, but it's like, I don't know. I talked to a few people in the USFL, especially one guy that's close as a fan and also covers the Michigan Panthers, and his response was like, really? Do we really need this type of headache? Of course, Jeff Fisher does have history with these type of guys, so I am not surprised. Like, he's hoping he might just be back of the roster, though. Or could this be, if for those of us in St. Louis remember this, Titus Young, when he was a St. Louis Ram for about 5 minutes.
Yep.
And even he was a guy that Jeff Fisher couldn't save. It could be that type of situation. Who knows? Yeah, and that was all the signings there, of course. The ones that did not sign, one thing was, of course, because Larry Federa, it's how you say that hat right there.
Oh, Fedora.
Fedora, yeah, there we go. He coached the New Orleans Breakers, and actually that's the team with probably the best mascot of all the USFL, Dave the Wave.
Dave the Wave, man. He sounds like a cool cat. We might have to bring Dave the Wave in.
Yeah, so, and it's just that he resigned from the head coach, so he's still in charge until they find the replacement. So that's going to be kind of interesting.
Right.
And he said it just to be close with family and stuff. Like, some people are saying that, or because people that didn't follow USFL, they played in a hub city in Birmingham. All their games were there. And quite a few, like, I get why they do it to save money. And I wouldn't be shocked if, like, because maybe some coaches were hoping they play in their home markets this year, but it's either going to be the same hub situation. I know they're going to try to maybe do a 2-city hub, or maybe they'll try to do a 4-city where there's 2 teams. Like, that's easy if you do a hub in Pennsylvania right there. Just have the Pittsburgh Maulers and the Philadelphia Stars share a facility.
Yep.
Like, heck, in the hub here in Dallas, there's 4 high schools in the St. Louis team. We'll discuss that a little bit. The XFL St. Louis and DC, I think, are sharing a facility along with the others. So that's going to be quite interesting there. And like I said, another one, the Tampa Bay Bands didn't sign anyone. And that's 2 teams didn't do any signings. And we're getting close to the draft here for the XFL that will be happening here on November 16th, Wednesday.
Yep.
And over the weekend, the XFL DC had their own prior workouts. XFL St. Louis have yet to announce a workout yet, but I'm hoping to see that. Of course, we all know, especially with Mike Mitchell, that the Beck is close with the Jets organization. He has that whole roster right in his back pocket and knows a few people too. And like, we went down with the coach who lived for XFL St. Louis, like, don't be surprised to see some other Rams players or other players that he knows, because he's played with both Bolger and Warner.
Oh, yeah. So he's got ties, man. He's got ties.
Yeah.
Now, we also, you mentioned to me off air, not on air, but there's some rumors that we could be getting XFL team names and logos next week, huh?
Possibly. I'm hoping, because usually now, today would be the announcement to do it in. Because they don't want to get overshadowed, because Tuesday or Wednesday are the best bets right now, especially with Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football with the NFL. So it's rumored, let me be clear. I'm not going to do any speculation or anything. I deal with possibilities, not speculation.
There we go. You heard it from the insider first, ladies and gentlemen.
Like, I deal with more with statistical numbers than just want to say anything outside the ordinary. So the one thing that they did do that is important, they did hire a senior vice president of ticket sales, Jason Gonala. I hope I pronounced that right, because it's spelled similar to Nutella. And he will lead in planning development of XFL ticket sales operations for the league for each of the 8 teams. Nice. And that's one thing people are wondering too, how much are the tickets? They're either going to be the same, and they're pretty cheap. And see, these are football season tickets. You don't have to pay any PSLs, so don't worry about that. The lowest cost was $20. The highest was $50. But there's probably going to be suites added. I don't know what the prices were. They never said what they were in 2020. So, because, you know, Anthony Beck's hashtag on Twitter is fill the top, and we were close to doing that for the LA Wildcats game until the pandemic shut us down.
Oh, yeah, man.
So
excited to get some folks back in.
And Gonala has some experience with this type of stuff with the Minnesota Vikings, the Philadelphia Eagles, and with the Prudential Center, and also a place you know, Staples Center.
Oh, yeah. Good old Staples, baby.
Yeah, so another thing that came out XFRIs locally here is that if you saw, there were some broadcasts here, Jim Thomas and also Andy Banker, who was the former stadium voice for the Rams when they were here, reporting the stuff about the possible of the first home game. And this was similar to last time because, see, for people who don't know the whole story, St. Louis got screwed with that lease that they did. Because, see, you have to remember, when that lease was formed, this was after the Cardinals left.
Yeah.
And this was after we failed to get that expansion team with the St. Louis Stallions, which, by the way, people don't know this, but Walter Payton actually would have been a minority owner of that team. If we
See, I did not know that.
Yeah. So they were basically, as, like, I got this from a colleague of ours, Derek King, they were basically just throwing stuff at the wall, anything, just to get a team to move, because this was after that bond was passed and voting to build the old Edward Jones Dome.
Yep.
And that first tier clause. They were just, and the LA Rams at the time were just like, oh, they're doing this. They're doing, like, we want this, and said, okay, we'll put that in there, But
Sign it off.
Because they were just so desperate. See, this time now with the XFL, the Dome Authority want to have at least some of the decision making. And that's, of course, but remember, the Dome makes money off booking those conventions.
Yep.
And because of this, they want to have a say-so. So it's similar to like it was in 2020. They actually had 2 away games, the Battlehawks did. First against Dallas and then Houston. That Houston game, the ending of that was still controversial in my opinion.
Yeah.
And especially when there was a blatant offsides call that was missed. So it's not surprising, of course, this will build up more of the hype to get that, basically as Anthony Beck did, filled to the top, because right now, it's not surprising, where St. Louis is number 1 in percentage of season ticket sales right now.
Yeah.
That ain't surprising. And it looks like, I'm not surprised, but even I had a little possibility of a chance if they keep the Battlehawks name. They know that the Battlehawks is basically printing money.
Oh, yeah. You know, we are eating that Battlehawks logo up here in St. Louis.
Well, yeah, the names changed. I have a feeling the look, all the logos, the originals might be tweaked just a tad bit, and then especially the uniforms, like, I expect the possibility that because of the deal they have with Under Armour's going to be making the jerseys.
Yep.
And here's one thing, too, that I'm hoping for the fan perspective here. You're able to customize the jerseys with the numbers and names. I would prefer that. I'm not surprised that doesn't happen, but it would just a little bit more just to customize it.
Well, and I would think that the XFL would be on board because that's more revenue for them on customized jersey sales, right?
Yeah, customized because they earn a little bit more, plus they don't have to give a royalty to any of the players.
Right.
So that I wouldn't be surprised there are royalty there because they are league for the players. So they need to keep that to that word.
Right. We'll definitely see about that, man. So
the first home game will probably be the weekend of March 4th and 5th.
Okay.
So it would be like the 2 games that I went to, there was a Saturday game and then there was a Sunday game. The one that was the evening, I can't remember which it was. I think it was the last one. I don't know. There's some people that were worried. I've seen from other interviews, one guy from the St. Louis Business Journal that was worried that if they compete with other teams, would it be a problem? They competed fine. After the game, we beat the Seattle Dragons, and then people were also wearing blue stuff, and they were walking down to Enterprise Center for the Blues game.
Man, yeah. So
they're forgetting these tickets are not that expensive. Heck, Blues tickets are more expensive than XFL tickets.
Yeah, I think that, and that's a way. Personally, you know, as somebody who liked what the results were for the XFL, you know, and moving here to St. Louis, I think one way to get a good fan base built is kind of, you know, leaning into that, hey, we're not trying to gouge you guys with ticket prices. We want this to be a fan's atmosphere. You can tell that the XFL has been pretty genuine about that to start.
They might gouge us with merchandise sales. But.
Yeah, now that's every league, personally. I'm an NBA fan, right? NBA is not going to give you anything cheap from a merchandise standpoint. So I think every league is going to be, you know, a little bit conservative, if you know what I mean, in terms of how they go about those merchandise sales. But I do like that the XFL is trying to make that actual game ticket a little bit more affordable for fans.
Yeah, more of a family-friendly type deal. And because it's going to be interesting because this is kind of a halfway hub compared to USFL where everything's in one city. They're practicing and all their stuff. They're going to have some, like I said, when I go in for the coaches, they have their video manager. There's going to be probably, like, once those teams logos, they're probably going to take control of those social media accounts. They better take control of that XFL Battlehawks one if the name is still there, because right now that was about, it's either close to 85,000 followers, and that's just smart just to take that over instead of just starting from scratch.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So they need to do that, and then let's see here. Yeah, that's about it for the XFL USFL news there.
Cool, man. So we'll transition now NCAA news, and so really not from an on the field standpoint, not a whole lot to discuss. Pretty much all the top 10 in the NCAA ranking stayed the same. Kentucky and Oklahoma State flip-flop spots at 8 and 9. Mm-hmm. Kentucky was 9 last week now. 8 this week. Oklahoma State, dropping back a spot. So none of that really changing. Biggest mover from what I can tell so far this week, Oregon going up from 25 to 15 after beating number 12, or last week's number 12 team, BYU. And then Michigan State dropping out of the top 25. So those are your rankings changes in the NCAA. You've got Mizzou kind of still doing Mizzou things. Saturday. They did get a win against Abilene Christian 34-17, but not as a dominant of a performance as you probably would have expected going up against a team like Abilene.
Yeah, speaking of that, I was double-checking because they were announcing the 2023 SEC schedule, actually, for Missouri.
Nice.
Yeah, let's take a look at that real quick here. All right.
They didn't put them against Alabama, did they?
No, let's take a look. I don't see it here. So it looks like
save them a little
September 2nd, they are home. I'm assuming that's University of South Dakota.
Okay.
September 9th, home game again against Mid-Tennessee State. And then this time, they better do a revenge game here.
Uh-oh.
September 16th, home against the Kansas State Wildcats.
Okay. So
I believe it's the year after that, 2024, is when we have that Illinois-Mizzou rivalry come back.
Okay.
I believe so, but it could be later. Then you have, apparently they have a non-conference game that's to be determined on the 23rd. Then, here we go. For the SEC schedule here, September 30th, away at Vanderbilt. LSU comes home. We know what happened the last time LSU came to Columbia.
Yep.
That was pretty much the end of the one coach that The Rock had down in Miami. I'm forgetting his name.
Oh, man. What's my man's name? Gosh, now I'm blanking on him, too.
Okay, yeah. Then, October 14th, away against Kentucky. South Carolina, Battle of the Columbias on October 21st at home. They then go to Georgia on November 4th, home against Tennessee. The Gators come here November 18th next year. Then, of course, you got basically the Black Friday rivalry with Arkansas there. Now, that's going to be interesting, too, because remember, this year is on CBS, and next year is when they start the whole SEC and the ESPN.
Right.
So that's going to be changing here. So speaking of that, I kind of wanted to, this came right on my way down here because all the conferences, they're trying to get all the money they can. Big Ten's doing Fox, NBC, and CBS. Now the Pac-12 are looking for partners too, and they're looking to Amazon.
So let me ask you this though. Not gonna have USC. Not gonna have UCLA.
Oregon's a question mark right now.
Oregon's a question mark. I've heard that Stanford might be a question mark. What is going to be left to televise for the Pac-12?
My guess is they're going to raid the Mountain West Conference. Because San Diego State is hot right now, especially with that new Snapdragon Stadium that opened up.
Oh, yeah. San Diego State looking good.
And, of course, even though they are right now there's a segment on one CBS Sports show, they're in, like, the worst top 5, Hawaii.
Ooh, yeah. But, if you got to get out here and start selling games like, the Washington Huskies in Hawaii, it's going to get tough trying to compete to get views on Amazon. I don't know if I think that's a good move for the Pac-12 now.
Well, they're going to go with the money, though, without USC, and they're doing well right now. Before we do, like, the other set, let's just go through the Mizzou game here with Abilene Christian.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I got one word. Inconsistent.
Of course, man. That's what. Look, Mizzou football, for those of us who watch this team long enough, man, you can expect some inconsistency.
Yeah, it's just weird, man. I don't know. It's oh man.
Yeah.
Like there's even talk Burden did get involved. He's got a punt return touchdown. Because some people are saying the coaching staff where if Burns not on the field a lot, he might try to do the transfer portal. And now, if someone gets in the transfer portal, all the coaches in the college world knows it like that.
Oh yeah, that news traveled fast, man. So
And,
that's not going to be a secret very long.
yeah, and then Cook to the Lovett connection because there was that 79 touchdown. They did well the first quarter, and then field goal kicking. Even though the thicker kicker got the record, Mizzou that's his nickname. I know his name is Melvis, but I prefer to call him the thicker kicker.
Thicker kicker. Hey, that might be the best nickname in football. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Even though he's got the most 50-yard field goals in Mizzou history, he was not that accurate.
Nah.
No. Then came the problem with back-to-back interceptions, and not just from Cook, but also from the graduate backup too.
Yeah, man.
Like, it just wasn't good. Like, even though they won from 34-17, I was not impressed.
Yeah, that was my note here. First note for this game is final score more impressive than the actual performance. So, not looking like we can expect a whole lot out of Mizzou from a season-long outlook. Now, big road game for them next week going into Auburn. I believe they got Georgia the week after that.
Yeah, here's how the TV schedule goes. They play at Auburn at 11 p.m. on ESPN. Then they face, I believe, number 1 Georgia.
Yeah, number 1
Next
Georgia.
week, an evening game, but that's on the SEC network.
Yeah, they might be doing Mizzou a favor on that one. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You don't want to put no whipping like that on the
Here's the
main
thing, too.
ESPN.
Auburn is not doing hot either after their loss last week.
Nah.
So, and there were people saying that he's actually on the hot seat. So this is actually a redeem game for both programs right now. And
Auburn, that's one of those schools where it's always weird for me. I expect Auburn to be kind of good all the time, but if you really think about it, historically they're not great. They compete in the SEC, but not necessarily the powerhouse you would probably think.
They strangely are always competitive at the Iron Bowl with the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, it's always a chance they're gonna beat Alabama, which of course for them that's like a Super Bowl win every year, baby.
Yeah, and boy, then of course you had I'm trying to remember who did Tulane beat. They
beat Kansas State.
Yeah, that didn't help us either.
Nah,
that looked even worse for us getting beat. How we got beat by Kansas State. Oh man,
hey,
that was not good at all. And of course, it didn't look good at all for Arkansas too, because locally they played ranked number 4 FCS school. Sorry, for this state with the Missouri State Bears and
Bobby Petrino, the revenge game, baby.
Yeah, with the neck brace.
Oh yeah, the neck brace. Hey, look, if y'all don't know,
they only lost by 11 points. That ain't bad.
Look, Missouri State, man, they ranked number 4 in the FCS for a reason, man. Now, we joke about Bobby Petrino, and those who, if you don't know the story on Bobby Petrino, just give him a good old Google search. You'll learn everything that you need to know. But he's definitely got that program humming down in Missouri State. So, of course, couldn't get the win against Arkansas, but I got a good feeling they'll be hanging around deep into the playoff season for the FCS.
Yes, and they're actually going to be. It's weird how the FCS rankings are because they're actually tied for 4th.
Yeah, who does ties, man? Just make a decision, man.
Yeah, so and they're going to be. It's going to be next week for them a 3 versus 4 actually. Again, San Diego State. No, South Dakota State. Ugh.
Oh yeah, that SD.
Yes, yeah. It's weird too because it's South Dakota, then North Dakota, then South
Dakota State.
Yeah.
Yes. Nuts,
so
man.
South Dakota's number 1 actually. So yeah, most of the good FCS teams are up in the upper North Mountains, close to the West Coast.
Yeah, I feel like one of those Dakota teams is always either in the mix or producing somebody that NFL scouts are falling in love with. So, Now,
Then one more too, like I was my fault. Illinois did not play last week. They had a bye.
Yep.
They actually faced the FBFCS team ranked number 9 Chattanooga this Thursday. Enjoy having. I doubt people are going to be doubtly watching the Big Ten Network Thursday nights.
nah, look, Big Ten football ain't usually at the top of my list and things as a must watch. So,
And just to end something with a little bit more local flair, because remember, we actually now have a D1 program here in the St. Louis area
sir.
with the Lindenwood Lions in St. Charles, Missouri. And right now, they're 2-0. They beat Houston Baptist 21-20, and then Curse, I'm not really too sure about that program, won handily 37-3. Then this week, it's a home game against, it'll be at Tennessee Martin. But
Okay.
the week after that, this is going to start the new rivalry for that conference when they face SEMO, Southeast Missouri State Redhawks.
oh yeah, I'm gonna be in attendance for that one, man. Look, of course, I try to support all of my local St. Louis teams, but a lot of y'all know Southeast Missouri State alum, of course, SEMO Redhawks. Always the rooting favorite for me, so I might have to be in attendance for that game. Gonna be here at Lindenwood.
Their football field's good, and also their track facility's pretty good as well. I actually went down for a few high school meets down there, and
Oh yeah, man.
our school, they have a relay there and for throwing, and we always won.
Yeah, Southeast Missouri State track and field was always top notch too, man. So shout out to them.
And then their schedule for D1, Central Arkansas, Eastern Illinois. I actually know someone that graduated from there that's now part of the Kent State coaching program right now. Murray State, then formerly, they were NAIA when I was in school, but now D2 William Jewell, Tennessee Tech, and then strangely, they're going to be facing another school close to here, McKendree.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh? I didn't think McKendree would have been part of the schedule, but you know
Well,
what?
here's the thing, too. Because this is their first year, they could still win the conference, but they can't play in the playoffs until a few more, for about 3 or 4 years, if I remember the rules correctly.
That's weird to me, man. How if you let a team play all season but tell them they can't qualify for the playoffs even before the season start, what's the incentive? Come on, man.
One thing, too, when I looked at Auburn's schedule, like they're 2-1 like Mizzou. They beat Mercer 42-16, then San Jose State 24-16, but then they got their butts kicked by now ranked 22 Penn State 41-12.
Jeez.
So, like I
Doors
said,
blown off.
but see, our Tigers were inconsistent. Auburn got their butts kicked. Now it's questions. They're mad. Tigers need to get focused.
Oh, yeah.
And this is also Battle of the Tigers.
Yep.
So basically, this Tiger game, which I'll call it,
Tiger game.
this Tiger game, we'll see which of the Tigers will be the last Tiger standing.
Yep. Now, somebody who is not going to be the last Tiger standing, one Herm Edwards down at Arizona State.
We play to win the game.
Hey man, like I wish we had ability to just go ahead and drop that sound bite in one good time, man. Herm was always good for a good sound bite, but apparently not good for further tenure at Arizona State. Done after 5 years there. Was 1-2 to start this season. 26-20 record overall in his 5 seasons at Arizona State. Now, it's being called a change in leadership by mutual agreement, which is one of those, hey, either resign or we'll fire you type of deals. At least is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, and according to the research I did, apparently what led to a investigation by the NCAA is apparently poor staff management by his part. Because they were breaking recruiting rules during the pandemic. It was supposed to be a dead period, but they were still trying to recruit recruits.
Hey, man. So, yeah, crazy. And, it's funny, Arizona State was also in that big basketball recruiting violation scandal here a few years back also.
And the thing is, too, is that the game they lost to
Eastern Michigan,
30-21 at their place. Though technically Arizona State's, I wouldn't call them a school. They're a party school. They've always been known as a party school.
Hey, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I've visited Phoenix my fair share of times, and even the adults in the area, kick it around the college area. So it's definitely party atmosphere, and one of those atmospheres where if you if you're not aware of your surroundings or can't handle your surroundings, you might get swallowed up by them real quick.
Yeah, and speaking, like I said, Kent State, basically the next opponent for Mizzou, Georgia, they face Kent State. That's going to be a dang cakewalk, though. MAC schools have had a history of being good fighters when they face big-time opponents.
Oh, yeah.
And then the only other game that caught me interest to me, and it's kind of obvious when you see it, is the ACC matchup, Clemson versus Wake Forest.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a good. Now, Wake Forest, they have a quarterback that's getting some draft buzz, correct?
Yes, and he was injured at first, but looks like he's back. So.
Yep. And then, of course, Clemson's still trucking along, man. They always in the mix, even though, I'm not the biggest Dabo Swinney fan, but I'll give him a shout-out. With what he's doing right now at Clemson. They still a top 5 program in the country. So we'll see what they do as far as college football playoff mix.
Yeah, and like I said with Missouri here, I didn't expect him, this isn't a team that's going to make the SEC championship.
Oh, no.
This is just more of an improvement. I know there were some, now with social media, you see all these recruits on social media say, hey, I got an offer from this school. I know they got another lineman, another offensive tackle got an offer by them, and like I said before on last week's show, they need the offensive line help, and of course that was one reason they didn't do well with because their offensive line didn't play well. It was inconsistent. They kept switching.
Yep.
And the running game, well, there really wasn't. Besides Pete, of course, that he's the transfer from Truman State, had the most rushing yards in D2 last year. So, sometimes it doesn't translate. But if your linemen are not blocking,
if you're not creating no space for guys or creating lanes for guys to run through, it's not gonna work.
And Brady Cook is starting. There were some things I liked. It's just that, and also please everyone be calm about Luther Burden.
Yeah. Please.
It's just his first year, and I don't know why people were going to the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think, it's a little unfair. He's played, 3 or 4 college games so far. To have the expectations of him, the team, and, already thinking, transfer portal if things get tough, I think that's a little unfair to put on that young man this early. So, we'll see as the weeks go on if they can get that improvement that we've been talking about. But so far, still looking a little bit shaky for Mizzou.
Yeah, recruiting-wise, there hasn't been much news because the only thing big, of course, was there, earlier in the year, Archie Manning, his son, now hopefully be the future savior of the Texas program before they go to the SEC, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, and speaking of the SEC, something that came out today, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State no longer doing the Bedlam rivalry once Oklahoma makes that switch to the SEC here in a couple years. So, in-state rivals not getting a chance to play that rivalry game anymore.
Yeah, when Mizzou was still in the Big 12, there were still some rivalries that had a lot of trophy implications. If you remember playing the NCAA video game, which is supposed to be coming back.
I think next season, right?
Next season, but Notre Dame might not be in it because of some weird thing I can't remember.
I mean, let's be honest. Who was really picking Notre Dame on the NCAA back in the day? I know I wasn't.
My brother was, actually. But the thing is, because we lost that telephone trophy game with Iowa State.
Oh, yep.
We lost, I think it was more of a rivalry. I don't remember if it was a trophy with Nebraska, but Nebraska has a lot of bigger problems right now.
And look, we talked about Ndamukong Suh a little bit earlier in the show. He made his bid to be the head coach of Nebraska on Twitter a couple weeks back. So, if he doesn't get signed to a roster,
go with because the last guy was alumni too.
Yeah, so, but Nebraska, like you said, they got bigger problems. I don't know in 2022 how you get kids to want to commit to Nebraska and actually turn them back into a powerhouse.
We do get that Oklahoma-Missouri rivalry back. Supposedly, according to the game, that was a rivalry game. Brought that back, and so SEC will be home to the Red River rivalry now. Of course, I know Disney's happy about that.
Oh yeah, you know that. Look, ESPN, ABC, they're gonna come on now. They're gonna make all kind of money off of that, getting both of those teams in the SEC. So, kind of zip through NCAA. We'll go ahead and move on to high school football.
Yeah.
Large school rankings. What you got for us, man?
Well, first let me go with what the rankings were for the results.
Yep.
East St. Louis, they went to Belleville East and smashed them 57-0.
Yeah.
CBC had another private school matchup with Chaminade, won 56-7.
Oh my gosh, heads and beds.
Yeah. DeSmet beat Vianney 56 to 6. Boy, I forgot those had the exact same scores. That was kind of weird.
Jeez.
And O'Fallon, they saved themselves. They only beat Edwardsville by 1 point, 32 to 31, which I believe that was the game of the week.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. Because, then, like I said, that was a battle versus 4 and 5 right there. So, the Edwardsville lost to O'Fallon right there. Then you got Francis Howell. This is going to get confusing. Beat Francis Howell Central 56 to 14. Then you got number 7 Marquette lost to Eureka, so there's some changes here.
Okay.
35 to 28. Then 8 Troy Buchanan. They beat Francis Howell Central. Wait a minute, did I say that right? Oh, I'm sorry. Marquette beat Eureka 35 to 28. Troy Buchanan beat Francis Howell Central 56 to 14. Then Holt beat, this all gets confusing too, because there's a lot of Fort Zumwalts.
Oh, yeah.
Fort Zumwalt South beat them 42 to 0. Timberland beat Fort Zumwalt West. See, here we go. And it was a high-scoring game, 59 to 56.
Man, no defense.
Nope. Then you got the on the bubble teams. Eureka beat Marquette. That will be shown in the rankings here in a little bit. 35 to 28. Mascouta lost to Waterloo. That was an upset. They're 35 to 18.
Yep. Shout out to Waterloo getting the win while being one of those teams on the bubble.
And SLU finally gone back to the winning side, beating Vashon 43 to 15.
Vashon's first loss of the season, correct?
I believe so.
Or maybe first in St. Louis loss.
Yeah. Then you got Lindbergh Flyers. They lost to Pattonville 29 to 17. Then you got Summit beat Parkway North 44 to 32. Then you got the small schools here. St. Mary's beat Lutheran South. This was 1 versus 3.
Nice. Big matchup.
This is probably the second game, another game of the week contender, actually.
Yeah.
Beat Lutheran St. Charles, but it was even close, 56 to 20.
Oh man, they St. Mary's, man. These scores that they put on some of these teams here in the area have been outrageous so far.
Then you got MICDS, or Marion Toot Country Day, if you want to get technically, beat Priory 45 to 7. Then, like I said, Lutheran St. Charles lost to St. Mary's 56 to 20. Cardinal Ritter beat Helias, that's close to Mid-Missouri and Columbia, 40 to 14. Lutheran North beat Westminster. Oh boy, 73 to nothing.
Hey, them Lutheran North boys get down, man.
Then 6 Vashon, as we said earlier, lost to SLU 43 to 15. Union beat Pacific. Number 7 Union beat Pacific 52 to 14. Then Hillsborough, down by me, beat North County 31 to 10.
There you go.
Parkway North, number 9, lost to Summit. We said that earlier, 44 to 32. Number 10 Highland beat Jerseyville 61 to 17.
Man, the blowouts just keep coming, don't they?
It's a lot of blowouts, even especially for ranked games.
Hey man, separating the men from the boys.
On the bubble, you got St. Dominic beating Grandview. Grandview's never been good since they've been around.
Nah.
Live for Life beat TDW Academy, though this was a close one, 13 to nothing. That was so far the closest game I've seen.
Some old school football right there.
Yeah. Modern Day defeated Alton Marquette. Blowout, 51 to nothing.
Got ugly.
Now here's a close one for you. Columbia beat Roxana 28 to 27. Someone missed an extra point there.
Yeah. Somebody's coach chewing them out right now for that extra point.
Then you got Wood River beating Salem, Illinois 42 to 34. And then Duchesne, they lost to St. Mary's 41. Oh no, I'm sorry. Duchesne beat Borgia 41 to 33. That's their next opponent. Yeah, let me go. Now, here are the rankings that just came today. Thank you, Post Dispatch, for being on time for once.
Hey, we love it when y'all on time, baby. Love it when y'all on time. Keep up the great work.
So, the top 3 teams, actually the top 5 teams, oh, they don't check. 6 teams, I'm sorry, did not change. Number 1, East St. Louis. Number 2, CBC. 3, DeSmet. 4, O'Fallon, 5, Edwardsville, and 6, Francis Howell. Now, we got, of course, number 1 versus 4, East St. Louis versus O'Fallon, but we also got 2 versus 3, CBC versus DeSmet this weekend.
Ooh,
So
that's a good one.
those are
Man.
the 2 game of the weeks right there.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie to you. I might have to make an appearance at one of those.
Yeah.
Maybe CBC versus the Smet. That sounds like it's gonna be a real intense battle right there.
Yeah. Then number 5, Edwardsville. They face Belleville West. A lot of Bellevilles too. I almost forgot around this.
Yeah, man. Francis Howes, Fort Zumwalt's, Belleville's. It's like 6 schools each.
And then here again, right next to each other, 6 and 7 face each other. Francis Howell versus Troy Buchanan. You got 3 right now.
Man,
Yeah. So
football going up out west.
yeah. Now, and those 2 were kind of flip flop. Right now, the number 8 last week they were 9. Holt. They face Fort Zumwalt North.
Yep, another Fort Zumwalt in the mix.
Yeah. Number 9, Timberland, Francis Howell Central facing them. Number 10, originally was on the bubble, but Eureka, number 10 now.
Cracking the rankings.
They're facing the Oakville Tigers.
Ooh, okay.
Now on the bubble, Marquette facing Northwest Cedar Hill. Summit faces those Limburg.
Mm-hmm.
Kirkwood. Well, another bye.
Hey, man, look, what's going on? What's really happening?
That is 2 byes that we've been on this show since we started showing that for high school games.
Hey, somebody gonna have to call Misha, man. We gotta talk to the powers that be about this. When we can start getting so many bye weeks in high school football, man.
And then for this on the bubble battle, I'm calling this the Battle of the Villes. Pattonville versus Melville.
The Battle of the Villes. Okay, Pattonville versus Melville. I mean, I don't know the status of those 2 teams. I actually don't stay too far from Pattonville right now, but we'll see how that one plays out. My guess is that Melville might sneak that one out, but no disrespect to anybody in Pattonville.
Yeah. So then, like I said, we have a battle that's ranked team versus on the bubble with Folk Zumwalt North facing Holt.
Okay.
So, yeah, pretty for this week, this is probably one of the biggest weeks now because for high school, we're almost midway through.
Yeah,
it's
almost like, playoff battle time in terms of fighting for, birth into the playoffs, fighting for district wins, all of that. So it's definitely crunch time here from a football standpoint in high school.
Yeah. Now we go to small schools. Because 1 and 2 didn't change. St. Mary's and MICDS.
Yep.
St. Mary's, they are facing the Duchesne Pioneers.
Yeah, look, I'm predicting another blowout. St. Mary's is rolling right now.
And then we got a rivalry game here because everyone knows about the private school in St. Louis, though there was always been a battle when it comes to MICDS and John Burroughs.
Oh, yep. Another old school St. Louis rivalry.
And then, here we go. The first ranked battle for the small schools, 3 and 4.
Ooh, okay.
Cardinal Ritter versus Lutheran St. Charles.
Okay. I got Cardinal Ritter in that one.
Yeah, also, this is probably the first time 4 and 5 both have Lutheran in their name. And here's a rivalry, too, but it's always been one side when you hear the opponents. Lutheran North versus Lutheran South. Yeah, and they actually are 2 and 2 right now.
Lutheran North is?
South.
Oh, South. Wait, and they're ranked 6th?
Lutheran North is ranked 5.
Oh, Lutheran South is not ranked. Okay,
Lutheran South is not ranked.
I was like, wait a minute. Hold on.
Trust me, that would be the twilight zone because everyone knows who played high school in St. Louis here.
Yeah.
Lutheran South was one of the worst programs.
Always.
And here's the thing. My freshman, sophomore year, they were in our district. And
Easy.
seriously,
Knock it out.
And my sophomore year, we came up there. It was rainy, the field was muddy, and we still beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, put a fork in it. It was done, man.
Yeah, so it's just not good. Now, like I said, the top 5 they didn't change that much.
Yep.
No. Then number 6, you got Union. This is, I believe, a rivalry game. St. Clair.
Okay.
At St. Clair. Now, here we go. I know this one pretty well. In Jeffco here, number 7 Hillsborough versus the It's the Hillsborough Hawks versus the Festus Tigers.
That's gonna
and
be
this
cool.
is at Hillsborough. And this is a 10-15 minute drive, a quick one.
Oh yeah, right up 55 North, man.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting because Like, usually in that conference, it usually comes to Hillsborough or Festus with them. Though Festus was actually my school's rivalry until they actually moved up from Class 3 to 4 in 2004.
Yeah. So, now, speaking of your school, man, Herculaneum.
We'll get to that in a moment.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
let's
my
do
bad.
this first. Then you got, who was ranked number 10, you got Highland facing Triad.
Now,
Yeah.
was Highland, they weren't 10 last week, right? They moved up into the rankings.
No,
right?
they were 10 last week.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, Highland, just for a reminder, they beat Jerseyville 61-17.
Okay, yeah, they put the hammer down.
Yeah, so then you had Vashon, who lost, but it was a loss to a large school, so they still dropped.
Yep.
They face Roosevelt this week.
Okay.
Then you got who snuck up on number 10 because of that upset win, Waterloo. They face Freeburg. I don't know what Freeburg is. So.
Freeburg is in Illinois.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. My fault. I looked wrong. They're going to Civic Memorial. I have no idea what that is.
Never been to Civic Memorial.
Then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the bubble here for the small schools. Columbia go to Freeburg, so there we go. Then, yeah, here we go. Parkway North, they go and face the private school Ladue.
Okay.
And then I believe this is a private school rivalry too. St. Dominic versus St. Francis Borgia.
Yep, definitely. You know, when you start getting the Saints in the name, a lot of times you could probably bet on that being a private
Yeah.
school.
So then you got Lift for Life. They're going to Brentwood.
Okay.
Then finally, like we said, it's number 1 versus on the bubble, Duchesne versus St. Mary's at St. Mary's.
Yeah, put a fork in it. I'll take, if they had betting lines for this, I'll take St. Mary's and whatever you want to put the spread at. I promise.
Okay, now we'll go a bit more of our neck of what's it like. You were mentioning my team, Herculaneum.
Yep.
Yes, unfortunately, they went to St. Vincent and they lost, but St. Vincent actually is ranked in the Class 1. So,
Okay.
and they only lost by 3, 19-16.
Yeah, it turned out to be a pretty good game.
Yeah, St. Vincent always had a history of being good, even when I played. We only faced them, if I remember correctly, my freshman, sophomore year, though. It was kind of weird. We had someone working our staff, like he was part of our football staff my freshman, sophomore year, but then there was a change. Then he actually was part of the St. Vincent staff when they won those state championships back in years back.
So definitely been around the block a little bit, man.
Yeah, so now, like I said last week, is really if a school's about 5 to 10 miles, is that really a road game? This is just a straight shot going down 55 to reach it. And this is a game I'm probably going to be at, hopefully. And just a reminder, folks, it's going to be cold.
Oh, yeah, that temperature going to start dropping later in the week.
The
man.
high is supposedly 67. And it's getting darker a lot quicker, so by game time, it's probably going to be in the 50, either low 60s or high 50s.
Look, bring out the hoodies, Scullies, all of that, man. You're going to need it.
Yeah, so this game I expect to be close.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
then looking at the rest of their schedule, Grandview, they're going to beat them. Bayless, that's always tough one. And what's funny, too, then after those 2 home games, they have to go all the way back to Perryville to actually face Perryville, the private school there.
Yeah.
And then home, they finish. Technically, it would be another short rivalry, too. We never faced them when I played, but now they do at Crystal City.
Okay.
So,
All of them smaller area schools right up and down 55 and that, like you said, kind of right before you start getting down into the boot, man.
yeah, I still miss that Festus Herculaneum rivalry because that was just a 5-minute, that was just a 3-minute drive.
Don't you love that when you used to go to your high school away games? Like you said, it's not really an away game, it's just down the street.
Well, if they played R7, that's about a 3-minute drive for me.
Oh, yeah.
So then there's your school.
Hey, go ahead, give them an applause now, man. The Spartans of Hazelwood East, another shutout last week.
Yeah, you guys beat Normandy 36-0 the week before. Then you beat Afton 40-0.
Hey,
Only 4 more points.
look,
You don't think they could have done more?
nah, look, you know, the shutout is enough, man. And an interesting matchup in the Price household this week. Hazelwood East going up against McClure High School, which
At McClory.
at McClure, I am, of course, an alum, the Hazelwood East. My wife, shout out to her, Wendy Price, we love you. an alum of McClure High School. So, we'll have to put a little family wager on that in some way or another.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
I looked at the rest of your school here. Then they are home against Clayton.
Yeah, which I didn't know when we started playing Clayton. In my high school days, we never saw Clayton.
Then you guys are at U City, or for people that don't know, in St. Louis, University City.
Oh yeah, come on now. They know. If you're in St. Louis, you know you City.
And then you got at Jennings. Then I don't know. My guess is your guys' homecoming's either against Clayton or against Riverview Gardens as the last one before the playoffs kick in.
Ooh, you know what? I'm not sure. Look, Riverview was never a homecoming game for us. That's definitely a rivalry game. Though I don't know how intense that rivalry still is back there in North County, but Riverview and Hazelwood East were real bitter rivals a lot of my high school years. So glad to see they still playing each other, unlike some of those old suburban North Conference matchups, Hazelwood Central, McClure North, of those things.
And it's also kind of weird, too, because then after that, the playoffs start. And is it kind of fun the playoffs start when Halloween is about there?
Yeah, I would think, man, I'm kind of getting used to the whole district setup now and how that's different than, back in the day. But just, I think there's ways where you can keep some of these rivalries intact while also still allowing for the schedules to be a little bit more similar to what they used to be.
Yeah, so the one thing that's hard to decide, because, like, I mentioned there's plenty of games here, especially in the rankings for Game of the Week.
Oh, yeah.
And with some other sites, I saw there was about at least 15 rivalry games this week.
Hey, man, I'm telling you, it's that time, man, high school football, man. So,
like, let's say between these two, East St. Louis versus O'Fallon or CBC versus DeSmet.
ooh, see, personally, I think CBC versus DeSmet is probably going to be a better game. East St. Louis could, even though it's a ranked game against a top 4 team, that could still end up being a blowout. It's a lot more likely that that's a blowout than I think CBC versus DeSmet.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely see how those play out, man.
The Troy Francis Howe game's interesting to me.
I think you mentioned. Gosh, now I'm blanking on which game it was that I was saying I might have to get.
You said CBC to Smith.
Well, it was another game besides that one. I'm blanking on it now, so I won't.
Troy Francis Howe?
No, it was another. I want to say it was another large school game. I could be mistaken.
East St. Louis O'Fallon? No, not that one. Let me double check here.
Maybe it was.
Yeah.
Either way, though, I won't belabor the point, but. As you can tell, man, a lot of good football going on here in the St. Louis area.
Yeah, for both, there's ranking battles, and the ones actually that I'm interested in more is actually the ones that are ranked against those on the bubble. So, like Fort Zumwalt and Holt,
Yep.
Dushin, basically on the bubble facing the number 1 team.
Hey, that's a hell of a on the bubble matchup. I'll tell you that much, man.
Yeah.
Definitely. So,
and then, of course, probably the one in the small schools that got, like, of course, is the one to watch is Cardinal Ritter versus Lutheran St. Charles.
yeah, that's definitely
And
another
it's
one.
at Cardinal Ritter.
I think Cardinal Ritter takes that one at home.
So, yeah, it's interesting because, like I said, you and I are new to how the playoffs go, especially with that whole, since it's not like the 4-team round robin that you and I did.
Right.
So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes because once it gets to the playoffs, it's going to be hard to figure out, okay, which ones to focus on.
I know, right? Like, it's going to be crazy times here around the St. Louis area when it comes to playoff football and high school.
Yeah, and then once states are done, boy, recruiting day is going to be so quickly. And then also, too, the other high school sports is also going to get in control here soon, too. Ugh.
Hey, look, it's that time of year, man. You start to wind down here into September, beginning middle October, you start getting, that whiff of basketball season on the horizon too, in addition to football. From a professional standpoint, baseball playoffs will pick up here next couple weeks as well. So,
and before we end the show, I just remembered something. Because due to the increased popularity, especially for on the women's side, flag football has increased there, and they are being considered to be played for like the World Games and actually something even for the high school level, especially for women athletes.
Hey, I think that's a great way to get women involved in the game of football. Not saying that they can't play a more physical brand of football, but definitely a good way to, especially for younger women, get that interest built and get those skills built in terms of the ability to play. So I think, honestly, we might have talked about this a little bit last week or the week before, but I think as you start to see over the next few years, I think flag football is going to start to get implemented a lot more at the youth level.
Yeah.
And just kind of developing those skills without those kids taking so many hits.
Yeah, that prevents early injury, especially when you're growing in puberty stages too. And also, let's not forget about the St. Louis Slam here, the women's professional team down there.
Yeah.
That's always been good. They're actually been doing tryouts right now.
Hey, look, women out there that love football, man, go ahead, put the pads on, put the flags on, whatever you got to do. Go get involved, man. We love seeing women getting the opportunity to grow the game. And, of course, getting some looks out there, whether it be semi-pro, professional, what have you. Definitely love seeing that game expand.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to go here with the next few weeks when it comes to high school. And once more weeks, the XFL is going to be here, and
before you know
here
it,
in
man.
St. Louis. So I can't wait. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for today of That's Football. We'll be here next Tuesday.
Yep.
And dear Lord, September's going by quick.
September is going by way too fast, man. So you'll get a chance next week to hear us not only recap another NFL week 3, but also we'll be back, of course, covering all of your high school news and notes here in the St. Louis area, and also, of course, any news and notes that we get from the USFL and XFL here moving forward.
And hopefully discuss a Mizzou victory over Auburn.
We hope.
We hope.
We hope.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. Until next week.